I've always been interested in sled dogs. My family has always had dogs. I grew up with the sled dog kennel. I followed other mushers and I followed the races. And so I've grown up being able to interact with these people that are also, like my heroes, my role models. That's what I wanted to do. Fish, and I would cut them up for snacks. My favorite part about mushing is being out in nature with the dogs. I have never found anything so close to approaching this feeling of complete bliss when you're out there traveling with your dogs, under the moonlight, and they're such a solid little unit. They're amazing athletes. My goals for this year for Iditarod is to improve upon my time from last year. I'm going to try and craft a schedule that is a little more rigid, a little higher expectations for our performance. That's basically the key to being a successful musher, is to know your dogs, to know them intimately, to know their gaits, to know their personalities. And you develop this relationship just by being with them. They're born to run. There's nothing that makes them happier than to run. The dogs help me stay safe on the trail by using their senses and their intuition, and they are very much tuned into their environment, and so they always know what's going on around us. So if there's any sort of wild animal, like a moose, they pick up on that immediately. Their safety is my first priority because I need to make sure that I can protect them, that I can stop them, that I'm in control at all times. A worst-case scenario would be losing the dogs. Maintaining your equipment is a really key component of it, making sure that your gang lines are all in tip-top shape, that your hardware that you use to clip the lines to the sled is all working properly. Be very familiar with how your sled operates and your snow hooks, because they can be very, very dangerous. I love my sled. It actually blew out of my truck on the way up to Denali a couple weeks ago. It was really cold that morning, and I was feeling kind of lazy, and I just had a bungee, and it got really windy, and all of a sudden, I looked back, and my sled was not in my rearview mirror, and it was this horrible, just sickening feeling in my stomach. But I swung by the gas station, and I went in and told the attendants that I was hey, I lost my sled. And oh, hi, here. And they had a note for me from the guy that had picked it up. It had a happy ending, but I had to learn that the hard way. I will never not tie my sled down with a tow strap now. The drop bags for Iditarod, I think it's the biggest challenge of the whole race. The logistics of packing for 1,000 miles, it's immense, it's pretty intimidating. So there's 23 checkpoints along the trail, and they're roughly 50 miles apart, each checkpoint. But you have to sit down and look at the trail and look at your race plan, because you may not stop in every checkpoint. You need to have a routine, and you need to know what's in that bag just by looking at it. Otherwise, you stand around and you do what they call the rookie walk. You just kind of walk aimlessly, up and down your line of dogs, trying to figure out where you put this and where you set that down and how much of this to take. And you should just know what's in your bags and be used to doing that. You have to have a routine. Experience and the best mushers are the ones that are always open to learning. They're always open to new things. They're always innovating something. People generally are really forthcoming and helpful because ultimately it's all about the dogs. Last year, Didi Genre. She's a competitor in Iditarod. I told her that I was feeling kind of overwhelmed, and so she invited me over to her place to see how she did drop bags, and that was immensely helpful. It's really nice to be able to soak up all these different methods and information, and then kind of pick and choose the methods that work best for you. Last year, I traveled a lot of the ways with my friend Monica. She was my trail buddy for most of the race. And we helped each other, but she was really slow at getting out of the checkpoints, and so I'd always leave before her. But I knew that she would be right behind me. And sure enough, after an hour or two, like, she would catch up and she'd pass me. But there was a comfort in knowing that Monica was just ahead. And for her, there was a comfort in knowing that I was just behind. Like, if she had some lead dog trouble, so she had some stubborn lead dogs, but she was okay because, I would come up behind and maybe get her dog started again. One of the scarier situations I've been involved in, I was a little ways behind my friend Monica. The wind was coming directly down the trail, like very hard, right into the dogs' faces. And Monica's team had gotten blown off the trail. They had wanted to avoid the wind, and so they kind of went down the mountain. The weather's so nasty, I was like, oh, it's better if we're together. And so my team just, went off the trail and plunged down the mountain after her. The way we were going kind of paralleled where the trail above was, and so we thought, oh, it'll just spit out at the bottom. Well, it didn't. And so we figured out that, okay, we have to turn around and go back to the trail. And so we anchored my team in the willow bushes. And as we were heading down the mountain, the wind changed. Like, for a really scary moment, like, I didn't know where my dog team was because I had been using the wind for my direction. And then we were walking down the mountain, and I was like shining my headlight around, and then all of a sudden I caught this glimmer of reflective tape in the bushes. It was my sled bag. It was plastered with 3M reflective tape. And so I saw the back of the sled just like gleaming out of the willow bushes. And so there's this great feeling that, like, of relief, I found them. But then there's also this really scary, like, jolt to my heart because they were not where I thought they were. I improved my time from last year by a full day, and I also managed to edge out my rivals for a first-place finish amongst the Siberian team. Running the dog team, it's a pretty complex chemistry. There's a lot of team dynamics at play. Single best thing I did to mold them into such a cohesive unit was maintain a really positive attitude. And if you are content and happy, so are they. Managing to hold such a big dog team together the entire race, that really is something to be proud of. Maybe the most important lesson I learned was that I need to set a schedule well before race time. It gives us something to train for. It's okay to be unconventional. On the 24-hour break, I chose to go about 100 miles, which is the halfway point. And I received some flack, and ultimately I did what I thought was best for my dog team, and I think I reaped the rewards of having a well-rested dog team later in the race. And next year I'll have a younger pool of dogs, and our focus will be placing as high as we can. Taking another full day to day and a half off our personal best is well within reach.